What's up, guys? Today we are going to be starting a brand new series titled The Evolution of an MMO. Today's game in specific is going to be WildStar. We're going to be taking a look at when the game was first conceived, its development process, and how it ultimately ended up failing. If this new series, if our content in general sounds like something that might be of interest to you, go down, click that subscribe button, and become part of our community. Now, opinions on WildStar are largely divided. On the one hand, we have players, fans as they like to refer to themselves as, claiming that the game was the best thing since chocolate. Then we have the other players who are just too casual to never really give the game a chance. And you know what both types of players have in common? Neither category of player played the actual game, contributing to the closure of the title. WildStar had the potential to be an absolutely incredible MMO. It had an engaging story, it had a beautifully crafted world, an amusing sense of humor that really didn't take itself that seriously, it had fun PvP, intuitive dungeons and raids, fantastic combat, and it didn't cater to the casual gamer at the time. By any logical train of thought, this should have been a huge success, right? The history of WildStar is a little foggy. On record, WildStar began development all the way back in 2005 after 17 developers decided that they had garnered enough experience working at Blizzard Entertainment and now wanted to channel their creative juices into something that they had more control over, resulting in the founding of Carbine Studios. They went on to state, and I quote here, that they desired to do anything but WoW. The general consensus was that the team was happy to no longer be working on the MMO, instead being able to start over from scratch. This time, not falling victim to the mistakes that they made when they were actively in the process of developing WoW. While evidently they did make countless mistakes with WildStar, it is never a bad idea to attempt to branch out and reinvent yourself or your creative ideas. Now, it is worth noting here that several developers that worked on the game have come forward and made public statements concerning when the game had begun the development process, leading us to believe that it may have actually had a much longer cycle than we had otherwise thought. But then you have to take claims like that with a grain of salt, because there's no real evidence corroborating their statements. After forming Carbine Studios, they ran into their very first small hiccup: the game engine. While they had a vision for their game, a clear direction that they wanted to take it, bringing that vision to life would be troublesome without the correct game engine. There were multiple options available to develop their game on, but Carbine revealed none of them really provided them not only the freedom that they required, but also the option of scaling in the future if and where necessary. After contemplating the options that were at their disposal, it was concluded that nothing on the market would allow them to create what they had envisioned. It was with this in mind that they opted to create their very own engine from the ground up, providing them all the freedom that they needed in the long term. Development continued to move forward between 2005 and 2007, with 2 years passing since Carbine's developers had left Blizzard, when it was revealed by NCSoft in 2007 that not only had the South Korean company acquired the new studio, but they were also in the process of developing a new, at the time, unannounced MMO project. Time continued to pass on by, with the game undergoing various overhauls until NCSoft decided to officially reveal a version of the game that they had come up with at Gamescom 2011. They confirmed that the new MMO would be utilizing a subscription-based business model much like World of Warcraft, requiring players not only purchase the base game, but continue to pay a monthly recurring fee to continue playing. And while players could pay for their subscription via normal means, there was an alternate method in place that some of you might find familiar. If you're an active WoW player, or you have played WoW at all in the last several years, then you will recognize the WoW token. This is an item that you can purchase from the cash shop that provides you 30 days in-game playtime. These are sellable in-game, allowing for players to purchase a subscription with in-game gold. This has kept many players playing WoW for years without paying a single cent. Now, WildStar did something similar in the form of cred, providing players the option of purchasing this item and selling it in-game, which consequently left the economy and its future in the hands of the community. This was at a time when the free-to-play MMO market was still quite strong and had millions of players actively split between various different titles. At that point in the genre's history, a subscription model all but assured a high-quality, successful game. But boy, were they in for a surprise. 2 weeks after their reveal at Gamescom 2011, NCSoft previewed the game with an extensive selection of footage at PAX Prime 2011. Hype for the game was continuing to build up after every reveal, with videos for the game game averaging in the millions of views. According to, once again, developers that worked for the game, the entire development process up until this point was quite troublesome. A lot of conflicting opinions, views, and an uncertain direction for the game were at the top of the list of complaints received. Yet even with all of these glaringly obvious issues, NCSoft continued to push Carbine to continue developing the game, which by that point wasn't even the same game that they had conceived at the inception of the company. Now, this does seem eerily similar to how NCSoft treats ArenaNet and the Guild Wars 2 MMORPG, so theoretically this could be a hint at Guild Wars 2's future. But yeah, maybe that's just me. Regardless, Carbine continued to develop the game according to the direction that they were given, with the game releasing officially within North America on June 3rd, 2014. Reception for the game was mixed. On the one hand, review websites like IGN were claiming that the game was almost worthy of a 9 out of 10, with other websites following along more or less, and while the initial reception was definitely fairly positive, players quickly learned that the game had more issues than what was present from a surface level impression. The game was very poorly optimized. This should have been evident to anyone playing the game for any period of time. But that was just the beginning. Every MMO launches with some bugs. That is to be expected. It doesn't matter if you had 10 beta tests leading up to the release of the game, it is impossible to replicate the data that you will be able to collect when a game goes live without allowing for that same number of players to be present during the beta. So, we have an atrocious number of bugs hindering player progress. We have very poor optimization, but that wasn't it. Not only were those issues frustrating for players, it took much longer to remedy than players were willing to accept. Coupled with what many players thought was a very subpar leveling experience, players felt bored, they felt frustrated, and they quit. In an attempt to alleviate some of the stress on their servers, Carbine went and opened up a surplus of new servers which fragmented the community, doing more harm than good, as servers emptied rather quickly, leaving the remnants of the game a desolate space. By the time the servers stabilized, much of the community had already abandoned ship. This was due to the issues that ran rampant over the course of the game's launch, some of which were just never addressed. This was due to an uninspired leveling experience, and most importantly, this was due to the game catering to hardcore players as opposed to the casual community. WildStar did not provide players much in the way of content. Yes, there were traditional PvP modes present just like in the majority of MMOs with PvP functionality, but for PvE players, you could raid. That was it. You'd log in each week to raid, and the raids required a certain level of skill to participate in. This game was not tuned for casual players. Instead, you needed a deep understanding of the mechanical nature of each and every boss, every mechanic, your class, how it related to your boss and to your group. They catered to a hardcore audience in a world that had become much more casual. Even World of Warcraft had become much more casual friendly by that point. For context, the base level of WildStar raid's difficulty was the equivalent of Savage raids in Final Fantasy XIV or Heroic raids in World of Warcraft. The endgame was a massive time sink that players just did not want to devote time to. And by that logic, if you were not interested in hardcore raiding, aside from player housing, there really wasn't a place for you within the game. A mere year later, on May 28, 2015, NCSoft announced that the game was going to be going completely free to play. This was entirely due to the fact that the game's population had ceased altogether. There was nobody left playing the game at this point, and NCSoft, in an attempt to save the game, opted to overhaul aspects of it and transition to a free business model. This provided a much needed boost to player activity, with hundreds of thousands of players that had never played the game finally being able to sign up, to download, and to log in. For the first month, the game was booming. There were players everywhere, but that was short-lived, as many of the issues that plagued the game back during its initial launch were all still present. Shortly after going free-to-play in February 2016, NCSoft had announced their intentions to close down all of their PvP servers due to them being underpopulated, merging them into the remaining 2 PvE servers. This consolidated the remaining players together until the game was no longer profitable and was subsequently shut down. After a mere 4 years online, NCSoft announced during a staff meeting on September 6, 2018, that not only would they be shutting down the entire WildStar project, but also Carbine Studios, who at the time had propositioned NCSoft with 2 other projects, both of which were rejected. At this point, NCSoft saw no logical reason to A, keep WildStar going as they were losing money keeping the 2 servers online even though the game was in maintenance mode, and B, keep Carbine Studios as a subsidiary as they had had no success in the 11 years that they had been actively working for NCSoft. WildStar officially went offline on November 28th, 2018, and the remnants of the player base were distraught, with thousands of players reminiscing over how great the game was. To date, players continue to discuss how much of a masterpiece WildStar was. You can find evidence of this by merely Googling around online. The reality of it, however, is that Carbine had very grandiose ambitions for the game. NCSoft, after acquiring Carbine, had their own vision for the game. The conflicting opinions caused quite a few issues over the game's development cycle, leading to no clear direction for the game overall. This, coupled with a combination of poop, yes, I did say poop, optimization, the issues plaguing the game, the catering to a hardcore audience by having too large a skill ceiling, and a leveling experience that just took too long and was generally uninspired, led to the downfall of not only Carbine Studios as a company, but the stifling of the game and its potential. WildStar had a fantastic setting. It was honestly a shame to see where it ultimately ended up, but at the end of the day, when you have too many chefs in the kitchen and none of them can fix the dishes before them, laying there is nothing more than a burned mess of ideas and promises. This is what you get. This could have been an amazing MMORPG, but instead, it launched as a premium title, it transitioned over to a free title a year later, and then it shut down 2 years after that. And that is WildStar. That admittedly did not have nearly as long a history as I had anticipated it having, but that pretty much wraps up episode 1 of the evolution of an MMO. What do you guys think? Was this a series that you guys might be interested in seeing long term? This is something that I would love delving into deeper for a variety of different titles. Let me know down in the comment section below if you played WildStar, if you thought it was worth your time investment, if you thought that it deserved to be shut down. Let's discuss pretty much everything. And thank you guys for supporting this episode. Thank you guys for letting me know in the comment section whether I should continue this and supporting each of the new series that I'm kind of spawning here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying all of them, and I will see you guys next time.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be